Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I am so lucky to be joined by producer and actor Steve Nelson. Steve, how you doing today, man?
Hey, I'm doing excellent down here in Austin. Got to say, enjoying some cooler weather. It's not 100 degrees. It actually feels like fall. Today's the first day of fall, so perfect
Yeah,
time.
that's awesome, man. See, up here, I'm in Michigan. It's actually still been hot. We haven't really gotten to cool down much yet, but
Oh,
my
okay.
hot is probably your cool anyway, so I don't think it really matters all that much.
Yeah.
So for those of you that don't know, Steve is producer and actor in the upcoming Time's Up, which you all know how excited I am for that. He's also actor in The Stylist, executive producer in Cherry Pickers, producer for the movie The Box, and also producer-actor in the upcoming Christmas slasher, which just by the name has me super, super intrigued. So I know things have been kind of crazy going on right now with COVID, but can you talk a little bit about the projects that you got coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, like, I feel like I had kind of been wasting my time in quarantine, just kind of getting caught up, with all the craziness. And then, it's just like a series of events that inspired me. Host, when the Host came out on Shudder, I think a lot of people saw that and went, "Wow, this is impressive," and they're doing it. They didn't make excuses. And then my good friends Aaron and Cam of Paper Street Pictures, they've released a few films this year, and I just saw The Pale Door, their new cowboy versus witches movie. And so I saw that at the drive-in, and just talking to them and being around it was just super inspiring. So I was like, all right, I've got to start getting some movies set up, stuff for next year. So I think I might have went a little overboard, but yeah. So I started just producing anything that looked interesting to me, which happens to be a lot of slashers.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a big surge of slashers in the next few years. You got Scream 5, you've got Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. And then, of course, Time's Up. I'm really, really excited to be a part of that. I immediately, as soon as I saw the poster, I was in, fully in. I need to produce this movie. I need to do whatever I can to make this thing real. So that's the main project I've been focusing on right now. We're gearing up to shoot. I have a small role in that. I've got other projects. Matt Shaw, he's a very successful author. He's working on a adaptation of one of his books called Box. Way he describes it is basically Buried meets Old Boy. So,
Okay.
very contained. He's going to shoot it in quarantine. Just needs 4 or 5 people to do it. So I was like, let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Christmas slasher. These movies are all funding too right now on Indiegogo.
Okay.
And Cherry Pickers, that's on Kickstarter. Yeah, I'm just pumped, man. I'm just ready to make some stuff. I'm so excited. And then I did a film early this year called The Stylist.
Mhm.
That's premiering at Fantastic Fest this upcoming Saturday. Yeah, right. And to Jill and everyone involved with that project, she's the director. She did an incredible job. I had met her through the short, The Stylist, years ago. Became friends with her. Eventually worked on this film, and then filmed a very small role in it, which I'm hoping didn't get cut. So yeah, that's what's going on now, and I'm just trying to set up even more stuff with some other friends. Hopefully doing something with Anthony Cousins of Scare Package. Which, by the way, sorry, I gotta promote, man. I gotta promote my friends.
I'll never hate on it, man. Because here's the thing: everybody that knows me knows my favorite horror movie of all time is House, and
Yes.
I love Scare Package, and the hand on the cover always gives me that House vibe. So I'm totally down to promote Scare Package in any way that I can. If you guys haven't checked it out, you need to check out Scare Package. I believe it's on Shudder or Amazon
Yeah,
Prime.
it's on Shudder, and
Okay.
today is actually they're calling it like Scare Package Day. So I know they were like doing a screening of it or whatever, and people were going to be tweeting and stuff. So that was
Cool, man. Yeah, and like I said, because I don't know, my Amazon Prime and my Shudder are connected with each other, so I
oh
never know which platform it's on, but it's so much fun. You guys definitely got to check out Scare Package. It's so cool. So you guys, Scare Package, you guys are so phenomenal. Thank you for what you guys are doing. Now with Time's Up, that's something I've all said a huge fan of. I've tried to help with the Indiegogo on that, and that's what I was going to talk about right now, guys. go down here in the description. We got the links to all the Indiegogos and Kickstarters that he's working on. Feel free to come out, help these guys out. We've talked about it before. These indie filmmakers, they're struggling right now during the COVID pandemic just as much as we are, if not more, because this is their livelihood that's completely on the line. So if you can find it in your heart to come down here, help out a little bit, and you get rewarded for it too. You get cool perks to come out and help out. So make sure you're clicking the links down here, checking this stuff out. And also make sure you're following Steve on his social media accounts. Those are all down here in the description as well.
But, yeah, I mean, I'm a little biased, but can I say, I don't think I've ever seen as polished of an Indiegogo campaign. The perks they're offering are incredible, from like being in the movie to owning props, VHS copy of the movie. Like there's some insane stuff in there. And the soundtrack is amazing. I can't wait to get that, the poster. So, I mean, like I said, I'm a little biased, but I'm going to own all of it. I want all of the Time's Up merch.
Oh man, me too. I'm a huge fan. Like I said, I've been lucky enough to have Corey and Damian Maffei both on the show before.
Yeah.
Some of the coolest guys in the world. I'm so glad to have you. Anybody that's connected to this project. Elsie Holt's a great guy. I love Hannah Fearman. So, I mean, like, I'm just, like, over the moon. Felissa Rose, I mean, what else
and
can
right?
you say?
Can I take too to, like, just to geek out, like, being able to work with these people, like, I mean, I guess that's a cliche thing for filmmakers to say. It's like, I grew up watching these people, you know, Felissa Rose, of course, and then being able to, like, you know, it's like I'm sending her messages and she's like super friendly and super like, and I'm just like, is this real life?
Dude, and it's so cool because, like you said, like, I look up to you guys, you know, and I got you guys that are coming on the podcast, and you know, I got some pretty cool stuff coming up and I'm really excited about. And so from the bottom of my heart, thank you to you for coming on and doing this. And like, to a lot of people, it's just, oh, I'm going to go talk about a horror movie. But to me, like, this is so epic and huge to me because you guys are people that I look up to, like I said, and to have you take time out of your day to come sit down and talk about horror movies with me, it's such an honor. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for coming on.
Well, dude, that's super kind of you. And I mean, you already have over 50 episodes, right, of the show?
Yes.
So, I mean, really, I should be looking up to you, so.
Thanks. It means a lot. But to be honest with you, we are here, people can't tell yet, to talk about your first horror movie. And your first horror movie was?
Arachnophobia.
Yes. John Goodman is my guy. And for those of you that don't know, you probably know by now, I am Michigan born and bred. So Jeff Daniels, my dude, Michigan boy. How old were you the first time that you watched this movie?
So I was 4. And I used to, you know, I've heard people's stories of like, oh, you know, I remember this movie when I was 3 years old. And like I was always a little skeptical, but then I watched Arachnophobia again in, I think it was college, and literally I watched the movie and the images, everything came flooding back, and I went, wait a second, I remember all of this.
Yeah.
And it just came rushing in about how important and influential this movie was to me at 4 years old. It was also part of, we saw it at the drive-in. So at the time, this was like 1990, that was the thing. You know, my dad loved cars, so we would just go driving around, go to different drive-ins. You know, I remember seeing like Naked Gun 33 1/3, Backdraft, and I think one of the Batman movies. But just that experience, especially when you're that age, and it's just so epic. Like, it's so, the screen is towering over you, and it just feels so real. So yeah, after I had rewatched it in college, I was like, I remember every single scene with spiders in this movie. In a movie called Arachnophobia, that's most of the scenes.
Sure. So now I want to ask you, we're talking about the scenes with the spiders, which, like you just said, is obviously 98% of the movie. Which scene affected you the most in the film?
You know, I honestly think they all stuck with me. There's something unique about each of the kills. So like, can I just kind of want to like start from the beginning and just like dive in, if that's cool with you.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Yeah, like the movie just, the way it opens is kind of insane. For some reason they decided the best way to you know, get the spider, the villain of the movie, to the main character's house is a 20-minute, basically short film.
Yeah, if they're overseas in a jungle.
Yeah,
And
I think they're in the Amazon or something.
yeah,
This thing is shot like an epic. It feels like Indiana Jones. It even feels a lot like Jurassic Park, which hadn't come out yet. And several times the characters mention, "Oh, watch out for the dinosaurs." And Amblin was one of the producers, so like you can feel Spielberg's fingerprints all over this movie, kind of like Tobe Hooper and Poltergeist. Even though Tobe Hooper definitely directed that, did an amazing job. There's still the Spielberg fingerprints. You can definitely tell. But the opening, the opening reminds me of the remake of Friday the 13th, where it's like you get your own separate short film.
Yep.
And then they're like, okay, now we're going to start the real movie.
And we're talking about the deaths in the movie. I think the death that freaked me out the most is actually the first one, man. Like once he gets bit and he's dead, and then they put him in the box, and then when they open the box later and he's just almost mummified.
Yeah. So this opening scene, we're following this character. We're like, oh, here's our main character, and then he ends up dying. Like he's the first one to die, and that definitely sticks with you because they kind of draw it out. Even though it's a quick death, it's super painful. You can see it in his face.
Yeah.
It's like the pure terror. And then he's got like a little bit of blood coming out of his mouth, and you're just like, wow, like this little spider bit him, and within 15 seconds, just done.
Mm-hmm.
And then it sneaks on into the coffin, and then winds up in the small town. But yeah, if you just go through all the deaths, they're all amazing. You have there's a widower who's grieving, and then she goes for the light switch or the lampshade
on the lamp.
Yeah,
and it gets her there.
I always stuck with me. She reaches for it, and the spider just comes right down into her hand.
And it looks so perfect. That scene looks. That's one thing I do want to bring up in this movie: the practical effects and the use of real spiders compared to the practical one. It's amazing.
Incredible.
It's so good.
The way they combine the puppet, the puppet with the real footage. There sometimes with movies you can take real footage of something. I don't know, open water. They're just like, hey, look, we shot some sharks. You can kind of pretend they're there, right? But here, the spiders, they're there. You can feel them. They're getting stepped on. They're jumping on people. And I don't know if it's still in production. They were going to do a remake. I think James Wan was producing a remake of Arachnophobia. This was, I think, a couple of years ago. And you can't replace it with CG.
No.
Sorry.
And that's what I was going to say, because I've talked about this on almost every episode. I'm not one of those people that thinks remakes are inherently bad. I always keep an open mind when it comes to remakes. But when you take a creature feature like this, and one that was done so well practically, I always compare this to The Thing. You had The Thing, which was so well done, the 80s remake of it, and then you get the 2011 prequel, which was all CGI, and it's just not even close to the same. The practical effects from the 80s version just completely blows it out of the water. So that's something I would hope that they would hold true with this. You got to go practical if you're going to do an Arachnophobia remake.
And here's the thing with Arachnophobia. It's a movie you don't want to watch if you hate spiders for obvious reasons. But then it's a movie you kind of want to watch if you hate spiders because they definitely kill spiders in this movie. Claim no animals were harmed. I think it's a loophole. They were probably like, well, technically a spider isn't an animal, so.
Right. And we're talking about the deaths of this movie. Another one that really affected me when I was a kid was the football player.
Yeah.
You're watching that and you're like, oh, that's a teenager, and he's going up for the catch, and I just remember being a kid they didn't kill that guy. There's no way. You know, and then the funeral scene's next.
So this movie was PG-13. It came out, I think, 6 years after PG-13 rating was even created. And this movie isn't overly bloody or anything, but they do not hold back. I mean, you got a teenage football star dying on the football field in front of everybody.
Yeah.
As one of your first kills.
Yep. That's when you know a movie's going to go for it, man. When they're going to kill a kid at the beginning, I would like Pumpkinhead. When the kid gets ran over by the dirt bike, shit's going to go down in this movie when they kill a kid at the beginning. Another one, and I've talked about this before as well, to this day, I check my shoes or my slippers before I put them on You know,
Yeah.
you watch the old man put his slippers on and then just, you know, like that scene scared the shit out of me too. Because the one thing about arachnophobia that's scary is spiders are real, man.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't a hockey mask. And don't get me wrong, I love slashers. I love Jason, Freddy, Michael Myers, Psycho, Texas Chainsaw, but there's more of a realism with a spider that I can see in my house every single day than there is a slasher.
Yeah.
And arachnophobia is just so good at scaring the shit out of you.
I gotta say though, like the setup to the spiders is so convoluted. Like literally, you probably could have wrote a minute scene where they're just like, "Oh look, we found a new spider. Uh-oh, it's loose." To dedicate 20 minutes just to finding the spider, having it like smuggle itself, hijack the flight,
Yep.
and it escapes through a doggy door, and then and then it bites the bird, and then it falls in a field, and then it gets to a barn. And like it reminded me of like it's so convoluted, like the opening of Home Alone, where like 50 things have to happen for the movie to take place.
Yep. And it seems like maybe they shot the whole movie and they still had a shitload of budget. We're like, hey, let's go to the Amazon, man. Like we got a lot of money to spend. Let's ramp this shit up.
And you did mention like so some of the effects really are incredible. I am a sucker for a good dead body. You know, if you're thinking like Indiana Jones movies, I like those kind of like rotted skeleton, like yeah. So they've got a good one at the beginning, like you were saying, he's kind of mummified. They're not afraid to show that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because a lot of people that, even if we watched Arachnophobia as kids, like our imaginations always take things in a totally different route than what we really watched when we were kids.
Yeah.
So you go, obviously I rewatched it to talk about it for our episode, but man, this is such a fantastic movie. The acting's phenomenal. John Goodman is fucking hilarious, and he's a badass too.
Amazing as that role. I want his action figure. I want that character on my shelf.
Yes, man. And one of my favorite scenes in the movie is, and I don't know why it makes me laugh, but at the end when he shoots the spider,
yeah,
and it's on fire and it hits the nest, and Jeff Daniels tells himself, he's like, "Nice shot." Like that makes me laugh every time I see it. Like he congratulates himself on the shot that he just made. You know?
He would.
So, yeah, that's one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. And it looks cool, the flaming spider flying through and hitting the nest. Like that's such a cool looking scene.
Like what a showdown. So you were saying like how to this day, you know, you look in your shoes for spiders. And it did affect me as a kid. I wouldn't use the downstairs bathroom because I saw a spider in the shower once and that was it.
That's a wrap.
I was like, I saw the movie. Mom, why are you trying to murder me? I'm not going to shower here. What are you doing? But then
awesome.
There's a scene where it's in spiders in a cereal box, I think.
Yeah.
The guy's eating it and then he's just like, oh, like that was another one that stuck with me where like anytime I pick up a box, I'm just like, you don't really know what's in here.
And that spider's dead at that point. Everybody's like, it's a dead spider, man. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
But the thing's fucking gross. That's what's wrong with me. It's disgusting looking.
But then that, man, so I'm a sucker for like a good third act, right? Like a crazy conclusion. I guess another early 90s movie that just sprung to mind is The Rocketeer. Like I love the whole Nazi blimp battle at the end. But this movie, man, like I love like the way they set it up throughout the movie. He's got his wine cellar he's talking about. He's working on it. He's talking about how like, oh, the floorboards are weak. We got to get those fixed. Like they're setting up all the pieces for the finale to you know. I just love when movies just take the time and care to like, okay, we're gonna make sure we're layering this and putting the pieces together. But man, that final scene where the spiders attack the house and they're coming out of the drains. So you're asking what was probably the most impactful moment of the movie. It's when they come out of the drains, when they're coming out of the sink, and like I can't get that image out of my head, man, for 30 years.
Well, I mean, even the one where like he's got the lighter and the hairspray up to the tube, and you're waiting because you know the fucking thing's gonna come, and you're just waiting and waiting, and finally it comes. And he misses. You know, like that whole thing, like that movie. Like I can't explain how amazing this movie is and how fun it is to watch. Now that I'm older, as a kid, it's just absolutely brutal, terrifying, and it has a stigma to it because As a kid, we're all scared of spiders, you know, no matter what. But then you watch this movie and it's like, oh, what the fuck? Now I got to be even more scared of spiders. But as an adult, you're just like, man, this is so much fun. And knowing these actors now, who they are now, and watching them here. And like I said, John Goodman is just so, he's so serious sometimes that it's goofy.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and
he understands the tone, which is something I want to talk about. So they really didn't know how to promote or advertise this movie. Because they were like, is this a horror movie or is this a comedy? So this is what they invented in 1990. They called it a thrillamedy, a thriller comedy, thrillamedy. And it's funny, like, even to this day, horror comedies have been around for almost a century, and still, they don't know how to advertise them. They go,
right.
well, it's either horror or comedy, pick one. And it's like, no, what don't you understand? Like, some of the best movies of all time are horror comedies. Like, so it's funny to see that they struggled with that. But also for marketing and promotion, the poster is, like you were saying about House, which is one of my favorite posters, and I love the movie. But the poster for this, it's perfect to me. It's just that just having the small town and like the giant moon, and this little tiny spider that's coming down from the tree, but because of the perspective distance, he's in front of the moon. It's like this little spider's hovering over the town. And it's so simple and perfect, and it makes me so happy.
And it's cool because you're my age, and when we were kids, the way that we got interested in a film that we wanted to watch was going to the video store and looking at the covers. You know, like, so posters in the theater, like, oh, look at that poster. We got to remember that movie so we can go see it, because we didn't have YouTube to go watch trailers. And, you know, we had 4 freaking channels. I had 11, 13, 24, 36. That's all I had. So trailers weren't widely available when I was a kid. I was lucky my family owned a video store, Downtown Video. So
nice, yeah.
I would just walk through the video store and look at the covers. I would spend hours examining covers of movies, you know. And I remember one of my favorite covers when I was a kid was Hellraiser. And I'd always take it up to my grandma and grandpa because it said hell on it. Like, hey, look at Hellraiser. This movie's called Hellraiser. And this guy has stuff in his face because he's a Hellraiser. You know, like things like that. I'll never forget,
like you
man.
were the Hellraiser.
Oh, I was a little shit.
But yeah, no, I mean, you're absolutely right. That was the image when you were a kid that stuck in your brain and left an impact when you left the video store. Those were the things, the back of the box, front of the box would linger in your brain for weeks, for months, for years. There's still some movies who I was just so afraid of the box art, I still haven't seen to this day. What's the one, I think, with Bill Pullman, brain damage or something? His like face is stretched out. I forget what it's called, but the cover I was nope, can't do that.
Right. But it's funny because I have a 12-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a newborn, and me and my wife were talking about how our kids will never know the heartbreak of going to a movie, like a video store, and picking up that cassette, and there's not the tape behind it. You know, like that was the ultimate heartbreak. Like, you've been waiting all week for Friday to come so you could go to Blockbuster, and you go to get that movie that you've been waiting for, and it's already been rented. And
you're like, all right, who's the dick who rented Tremors 2? Okay, I'm gonna watch that tonight.
And then you have that one last glimmer of hope going up to the guy at the counter, like, hey, can you look in the return bin and see if Tremors 2 is in there, please?
But then the kids nowadays won't know that sense of elation when they reach down and they turn around and they're like, actually, we do have Tremors 2. And it's like the best moment of your life until you watch Tremors 2.
Right. Wait, these fucking things have legs now?
They're actually Tremors 7, I think, just came out, which
me and my wife,
that franchise.
Dude, we just watched all of them recently, and I gotta say, the only one that I don't like is the Old West one. I even liked the Canada one in the ice. That one didn't bother me. And I know I catch a lot of shit for this all the time. Tremors 3 is actually my favorite of all of them. Now, look, I know one is iconic, and it's amazing. I agree. The cast is great. Kevin Bacon's awesome. I love it. 2 was
that also 1990, the first Tremors?
I believe so. It was right around there.
That's another one of my favorite horror comedies. It's literally, I think it's one of the best scripts ever written. I've watched that movie, and I've literally just sat there and written down the dialogue and rewritten the script and just, sorry, this isn't a Tremors.
No, man, this is what I love. I love to talk about all horror movies. This is actually leading into my next question for you.
Sure.
We talked about your first horror movie, which was Arachnophobia. Now I got to go scream on you here. What's your favorite scary movie? What's your favorite horror movie if you had to choose one?
Yeah, that's the classic question, man. It's so easy to just go with the classics, the ones that were influential, Evil Dead and The Thing. And I love the trio of, I call it to me, it's a trio of remakes in the 80s. You had The Thing, The Fly, and The Blob. And those are three movies I think are perfect. And, we're able to update the story and the effects. And so those three movies are pretty high up there for me. If we're talking about like most influential movies, so definitely like Arachnophobia, but Evil Dead 2, anything horror comedy. So Dead Alive was huge on me. Peter Jackson. So I don't know. It's hard to pick that one true favorite. Man, I wish I had a better answer for you.
No, that's fine.
I just showed my girlfriend Trick or Treat for the first time. That's one of my favorite Halloween movies.
Did she dig it?
Yeah, she really liked it. Yeah.
Good. Oh, little Sammy. I love Sam.
Oh, I do. I can't. I have a tattoo. Hold on. How crazy can this podcast get?
Super. Oh, that's awesome. The sucker. Dude, that's so cool, man. Dude, and it's funny because I'm in the way opposite of everybody else. I love Halloween. When I first started talking about, when I was doing the podcast and I was doing stuff, I was really down on the Halloween series because to me, it's always been really white bread, like Michael Myers is just stab, 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 stab. But the more I dissect these movies, the more I appreciate them for being that. He's just a scary dude that's just going to stab and kill you. He's not going to be all tricky. But Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, is my favorite Halloween movie. And that's the movie that me and my kids watch every year on Halloween. That's our Halloween movie. It's,
Dude, that's a new tradition. And now to your kids, they're going to only know the original Halloween as like, oh, that's the movie that's playing in Halloween 3.
Yes. And I adore Halloween 3, man. I think that movie got a bad rep because it was Halloween 3. If it would have just been Season of the Witch, I think it would have taken off, man. I think it would have been huge. The idea of an evil corporation that's killing kids with masks. It's so dark, man.
And Carpenter, his idea to turn the series into an anthology was so ahead of its time. I mean, anthologies are bigger than ever. So he definitely.
And I'm with you. I love anthologies. All the tales, whether it's Tales from the Crypt, Tales from the Hood. I love Creepshow.
So Arachnophobia helped me face my fear of spiders eventually. It took like 25 years. Creepshow was cockroaches.
Man.
And for I had lived in Chicago most of my life, so I didn't really have many cockroaches up there. I moved to Texas, and now they're just here. They just live in the trees and stuff. So I've gotten better, but the first few months in Texas, panic attacks.
I bet
busting out of me.
Well, yeah, like you said, Creepshow to me is another one of those movies that there's three movies that I would talk about real quick. Creepshow is in my life very iconic. Me and my cousins when we were kids, we would just talk about I can hold my breath for a long time. That's one of them that we were just huge on. And one I wanted to talk to you about, and I always bring this up when I talk about my favorite horror movie, because my favorite horror movie in the last 15 years to come out actually is Cabin in the Woods.
Okay.
And I think that Cabin in the Woods is about as close to perfect as you can get. Besides, Nightmare on Elm Street is another one. If you take away the last 5 minutes of the original Nightmare on Elm Street, it's the perfect horror film.
Yeah.
But Cabin in the Woods, you hear that title and you think it's going to be the most cliche, stupid horror movie, but it's actually the opposite. It's so intelligent and so far ahead of the genre that I think it's just such a perfect film, man.
Just listed all of its problems. It's too intelligent. They didn't they didn't know how to market it. Same thing with Trick or Treat. They
Mhm.
just sat on a shelf. They're like, we don't know what to do with this, I guess. So yeah, Cabin in the Woods. They were just like, here, I guess. And then it's like, surprise! It's actually one of the best horror comedies ever made.
Yeah.
Uh,
And you're talking about Trick or Treat. We're just talking about anthologies and didn't even talk about Trick or Treat. You know, that's totally an anthology movie that wraps it all up in a beautiful package.
yeah, that was so. I was I started last year shooting a short. I got distracted with the quarantine and everything. You can see some of the stills on my Twitter, but the premise for the short was I was going to make I'm still hopefully going to shoot it, but it's a 10-minute anthology. So it's a horror host hosting like a Halloween special, and it's like 3 2-minute shorts. But yeah, so I love that format. I love the idea of doing it in a short format. I
Yeah.
think, if the name slips me now, is it like the Femme Collective or something? They did like an anthology that was only like, I think, 7 or 8 minutes. I saw it at Fantastic Fest. So yeah, I love that people are playing with that format of anthologies.
Dude, they're perfect. Because the thing with an anthology is you can have one that's totally lame and the movie will still get saved because you have so many good ones that go along with it.
Yeah.
So I always end these podcasts with the same thing. We do a skull count. 0 being the worst, 5 being the best. Where are you ranking Arachnophobia?
So I'm kind of hovering. Can I do a half? Can I do like a 3.5?
Absolutely.
I think it's a very good movie. I love the tone. I love the effects. The suspense scenes are handled so wonderfully. Like there's so much to love about the movie, but it's a little slow. There's a lot of like small town stuff, and some of the humor. It's maybe not as funny as it could have been, but
Sure.
yeah, I don't know. To me, 3.5 out of 5 or 7 out of 10. That's like a solid. Watch it.
Yeah. And that's exactly where I would put this movie at, actually. I was going to go right at a solid 3 out of 5 because you're right. There are some jokes in this movie that you're like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
But it's still the humor that does miss. There's so much more that hits and the practical effects, the real spiders, like John Goodman alone takes us up a skull.
Yeah.
That guy is brilliant in this movie. He makes me laugh. I think he's a badass. Like you said, I would totally own an action figure of him. So don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you.
Yeah, sure.
Everybody else, remember, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.